1989, we were introduced to one of the most iconic mascots of the 20th century. You will recognize him rather immediately. I have a short video clip that I want to play. It's actually some commercials that I believe these commercials are actually from 1989. And you'll see as this mascot starts in one commercial and he invades some others. Let's play. As soon as you saw the bunnies on the drum, you knew exactly where we were going with this, weren't you? Yeah, the Energizer Bunny has become very iconic as the one that keeps going and never, ever stops. Since 1989, he is still the pitchman for those batteries. And so what we are going to look at this morning is something else that continues on. Now you noticed there was the comparison, okay? Other batteries, this is what happens, but with our battery, it doesn't. This morning, as we are going to be in Hebrews chapter 7, we are going to see comparison. And this is going to be a comparison between one kind of priest and another kind of priest. Now, we've been going through the book of Hebrews and looking at how Jesus is better. He is better than Moses and better than the law and better than angels. And there's multiple points of comparison. But as we get into chapter 7, we're going to see a very specific comparison between Jesus and other priests. Now, to set the stage for us, we need to back up into chapter 5, because in chapter 5 we were introduced to a character, and then we kind of took a digression in chapter 6, and now we're going to get back to it in chapter 7. So chapter 5, verses 9 through 11. And having been made perfect, he, this is Jesus, became to all those who obey him the source of eternal salvation, being designated by God as a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. Okay? Melchizedek, this Old Testament character. Then in the end of chapter 5 and on through chapter 6, the author says, we're not ready to teach about that right now because you guys have some maturity issues, or really more immaturity issues. You need to grow in some areas in your obedience of the word. And then now in chapter 7, he's going to get back to that. But let's start at the end of chapter 6 to set the stage. This hope we have as an anchor for the soul, a hope both sure and steadfast, and one which enters within the veil, where Jesus has entered as a forerunner for us, having become a high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. So Jesus is a priest in the Melchizedek order, of that kind of priest. Now, we're going to see over the next several chapters about how Jesus is the superior priest, superior to the others, but specifically he's the superior high priest because he is a Melchizedek order priest, not a Aaron order priest or a Levitical, Levi kind of priest, okay? Levi and Aaron used interchangeably, but those are the forerunners of the priesthood that had been handed down to folks, okay? Now, this morning's text in chapter 7 is going to be reminiscent of a courtroom drama. In a courtroom drama, as you've watched on TV, you know, the lawyers are battling back and forth, and what they do is they present, here's my case. Here's Exhibit A, Exhibit B, here's Argument 1, Argument 2, as they go through and systematically present them. And what they usually do is they will present several pieces of evidence, and as they reach the end, they give, and here's the clincher. Here's the one that's the most important. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all the evidence is presented in chronological order. It is presented in order of compellingness. How strong of an evidence is this? And that's what we're going to see today. We're going to go through in order, but at the end we're going to switch it up just a little bit to save the most important one for last. Okay? So we are going to go through and see several different kinds of evidence. Now, what is it that is on trial in this courtroom? Okay? This is not a guilt or innocence kind of trial. This is a trial. What kind of faith do you have? What kind of faith do you have? That's what is on trial. Okay? In what is it that you are trusting? And what is the result of your faith? Those are the questions that are going to be answered as a part of this. Okay? So the first piece of evidence is going to start by talking about Abraham and Melchizedek. This comes in chapter 7, verses 1 through 3. For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham as he was returning from the slaughter of the kings and blessed him, to whom also Abraham apportioned a tenth of all the spoils, was first of all, by translation of his name, King of Righteousness, and then also King of Salem, which is King of Peace. without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like the Son of God, he remains a priest perpetually. Now, this whole idea of perpetual is going to come up. Different words are going to be used throughout the chapter, but something that endures, something that never runs out, that is going to come up over and over again, and that's what makes Jesus so unique here. Now, this comparison between Abraham and Melchizedek, don't get thrown off by the fact that he didn't have a father or mother. Some people think this is a pre-incarnate form of Jesus, but if you notice what it says, he was made like the Son of God. It doesn't say he was the Son of God. It just means that in the Old Testament record, this guy just kind of appears and then disappears. We don't know where he came from. We don't know where he went. We don't know how long he was priest or king or any of that stuff. He just kind of pops in, and but there's no record of his death. And so therefore, if a person doesn't have a death certificate, they're kind of considered as continuing to live on, right? So that's kind of the idea behind Melchizedek here. Now, the three comparisons that we're going to see start in verse 4, okay? Now observe how great this man was, to whom Abraham, the patriarch, gave a tenth of the choicest spoils. And those indeed of the sons of Levi who receive the priest's office have commandment in the law to collect a tenth from the people, that is, from their brethren, although these are descended from Abraham. But the one whose genealogy is not traced from them collected a tenth from Abraham, and blessed the one who had the promises. But without any dispute, the lesser is blessed by the greater. In this case, mortal men receive tithes, but in that case, one receives them, of whom it is witnessed that he lives on. And so to speak, though through Abraham, even Levi, who received tithes, paid tithes, for he was still in the loins of his father when Melchizedek met him. Now that may seem a little bit confusing here. Okay, Abraham, he went to rescue his nephew Lot, who had been taken captive. So he gathered his household, got some other people together, went, did a midnight raid, took him back and got the spoils. And so as he came back, he found a priest of God Most High, the true God. And so he gave a tithe of what he had received to him as a means of worshiping God. Okay, that's the background of this story. So there are three comparisons between Abraham here, between Melchizedek and the Jewish priest. The first one is the whole idea of tithing. Okay? The whole idea of tithing. So the person tithes to one who is greater than them. A priest has a higher office than the normal person, right? Okay? Well, Abraham, he recognized that Melchizedek was greater than him. Okay, as a representative of God, and so he tithed to Melchizedek. That's the first thing, the tithing. Second is the whole idea of blessing. Who gives the blessing to whom? The greater person blesses the lesser person. Melchizedek was greater than Abraham. And so that's the direction that the blessing flowed. But the third really, it clinches it for us, and that is the fact of the whole idea of the patriarchy. Now these are all kind of older customs, okay? The tithing, the blessing, but the patriarchy. There is no way in that culture of that time that a son would be greater than his father. The father has more honor than the son. The grandfather more honor than either one of them. The one who is older in the generations has the greater honor. Okay? From whom do the Jews trace their ancestry? From Abraham, including all of the Jewish priests. So if Abraham is greater than all of the priests, because he was their ancestor, Abraham is greater than all the priests. To whom did Abraham tithe? Melchizedek. So therefore, since all of the priests are less than Abraham, and Abraham was less than Melchizedek, Melchizedek is higher than all those priests. Melchizedek has a greater honor. So if Melchizedek as priest has greater honor than the other priests, any person who is in the line of Melchizedek is also going to have a greater honor. Okay, so when we're looking at the ancestry or the patriarchy, that's what we see. Now, since Melchizedek has no death certificate, okay, he perpetuates on. Okay, he doesn't pass off the scene. Now, it doesn't mean the guy didn't die, but from a legal perspective, okay, there's no proof of his death, so his ministry continues on. So if he's better and if he's still alive, then that means that Jesus also has a better priesthood than any of the Aaron priests, any of the Levitical priests, those descended from Levi and from Aaron. Okay, does that make sense? Jesus is better because he's in the line of Melchizedek and the fact that it's a continual priesthood. Okay, keep that in mind. A better lineage. But that's not the only reason that Jesus became priest. It's because he became a priest, second argument, by a better appointment. He came into the priesthood in a better way. Now this section is a little bit longer, so I'm going to break it into two pieces. Let's read verses 11 through 17 first. Now, if perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, for on the basis of it the people received the law, what further need was there for another priest to arise according to the order of Melchizedek, and not be designated according to the order of Aaron? For when the priesthood is changed, of necessity there takes place a change of the law also. For the one concerning whom these things are spoken belongs to another tribe from which no one has officiated at the altar. They're referencing Jesus, okay? For it is evident that our Lord was descended from Judah, not from Levi, okay? A tribe with reference to which Moses spoke nothing concerning priests. And it's clearer still, if another priest arises according to the likeness of Melchizedek, who has become such not on the basis of a law of physical requirement, but according to the power of an indestructible life. For it is attested of him, you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Now again, this is getting kind of deep here, so let's pause and kind of unpack this. Yeah, because I can see your eyes kind of like, oh my goodness gracious. It's kind of like listening to a legal argument. I mean, if I listen to a lawyer's talking, I'm like, what language are you speaking? Okay, so let's go through and translate this just a little bit. Okay, there's two reasons that we'll get to here. One is a better means and one is a better covenant. Okay, how did Jesus come to be a priest? Not based on heredity, but based on an oath. He didn't descend from Levi. He didn't descend from Aaron. It's not traced through a bloodline. He became a priest by an oath. God said, you are a priest. I am swearing you are a priest. That's why it's better. He became priest by a better means. Now, why is this better? Have you ever seen it? You're familiar with nepotism, that term, okay, where people show favoritism to family members? Okay, so if a person inherits, let's say, the business, okay, Dad built the business by the sweat of his brow over decades, and then Junior gets it and drives the thing into the ground because the kid didn't know what he was doing. He got it based on heredity, not based on qualification, right? The same way with like an inheritance. You really respect a person who earns their way to their wealth rather than a person that just got a big check when their dad passed off the scene, right? So, in Jesus' case, he didn't receive it based on a lineage. God chose him based on his qualification. You are a priest forever. You are a priest. So God chose him. He didn't just get handed it because of the heredity. Okay? And if you want more information on the whole idea of an oath, listen to last week's sermon. It's on the website if you didn't catch it, but we talk a lot about the oath last week. Okay? Now, look at the first part of verse 11 again, because this is going to help us get into verse 18. If perfection was through the Levitical priesthood, it wasn't. It wasn't through, you could not become perfect through that. Okay, so now let's go down to verse 18. For on the one hand, there is a setting aside of a former commandment because of its weakness and uselessness. For the law made nothing perfect. And on the other hand, there is a bringing of a better hope through which we draw near to God. Inasmuch as it was not without an oath, for they indeed became priests without an oath, but he, Jesus, with an oath, through the one who said to him, the Lord has sworn and will not change his mind, you are a priest forever. Okay, Jesus is the priest of a better covenant. The first one couldn't make you perfect. The second one can. Jesus isn't a priest of the old law. He isn't a priest of the Ten Commandments and the Mosaic law and that old covenant. He's a priest of a new covenant. He's not a priest of the one that would result in imperfection. He is the priest of the one that results in perfection. Jesus can make you perfect. The old one could not. It's not a Band-Aid, but a true fix. Band-Aids are temporary things. They don't necessarily fix the problem. Okay, sometimes if you do first aid, we're taught if you guys have taken first aid, right, before, okay, or CPR, that kind of thing, what you're doing intervention until the professionals can get there and really fix things. Okay? Jesus is the professional in this way. He's the one that can really fix it. Now, how is perfection possible? That is our third argument. It's because of a better sacrifice. Jesus is the priest of a better sacrifice. Now, we're going to jump out of order here, jump down to verse 26. For it was fitting for us to have such a high priest, holy, innocent, undefiled, separated from sinners and exalted above the heavens, who does not need daily, like those high priests, to offer up sacrifices, first for his own sins, then for the sins of the people. Because this he did once for all when he offered up himself. For the law appoints men as high priests who are weak, but the word of the oath, which came after the law, appoints a son made perfect forever. The Levitical priests had a daily job. They had to go in, they had to offer sacrifices, but before I could, if I'm the priest, before I can sacrifice for you, I got to sacrifice on my own behalf because I am a sinner. I got to fix myself before I can fix somebody else, right? That's the way it is. You ever, if the oxygen mask dropped down, what should you do? You put it on your own face first, then you help other people. You've got to take care of your own issues, then you can take care of others. Jesus didn't have any of those issues. He didn't have any sin. So when he came, he offered himself once for all. It is the everlasting sacrifice. It is perfect. The effect of Jesus' death on our behalf keeps going and going and going for all of eternity. It never runs out. If you have kidney failure, what do you need to do? Okay, you go to the doctor, and what do? They put you on something called dialysis. Okay, dialysis, you go in daily, weekly, every few days, but it's regular. You can never stop dialysis when your kidneys are in failure. You have to keep going or you're going to die because the toxins won't get filtered out of your blood. Let me ask you this. What would you prefer, dialysis or a kidney transplant? If you get a kidney transplant, you don't have to keep going in, right? It fixes it. Your body can take care of itself then. Do you understand the difference? The priests daily sacrifice. Get up and sacrifice again tomorrow. Sacrifice again tomorrow. I got to go every day to fix the toxicity between me and God. My sin. It just keeps coming up over and over. I got to go in every day and do this. Jesus came, and it's just like the transplant. It's one and done. It doesn't have to happen over and over. His sacrifice is enough to cover you for the rest of your life and for all of eternity. That's the difference. So which one do you want? Do you want the daily dose or do you want the one and done? These Jewish people are being tempted to go back to the old Jewish ways, and the author of Hebrews is saying, what? Why would you do that? This is done, finished. Don't go back to that daily. It is insufficient. It cannot make perfect. Jesus' sacrifice does. It makes us perfect. Now, our temptation is not necessarily the same as what the Jewish people were facing. The Jewish people were being tempted to revert to that old religion. But I'm guessing that this morning you didn't wake up with a temptation. I'm like, man, I really got to go get that goat and sacrifice it before I go in. Okay? It's like, I just feel like I really got to kill something this morning. Well, maybe you felt that way, but not for that reason. Okay, to be made right with God. We don't face that. But their temptation was, let me go back to the old way of making myself right before God. Have you ever depended on anything else to make yourself right before God? I just got to give a little bit more. I got to serve a little bit more. I got to sacrifice a little bit more. God's not going to be pleased with me unless I do and do and do over and over again. We can all be tempted to go back to a doing mentality, whether that's a giving money, I got to put in more hours in ministry, I got to sacrifice more just so God will be pleased with me, to make myself acceptable. Or, how about this one? I've sinned again, and I really can't go back to God because I knew better, I did it. I can't go back to God until I've at least proven myself by going without committing that sin again today. And then I can go to him tomorrow. No. That is a lie. That is still a doing mentality. With Jesus, it is done. One and done. No more sacrifice is necessary. Now, if you struggle with coming to God, okay, you can put that to rest. Let me read to you now verses 23 through 25. This is the clinch, the most important of the arguments, verses 23 through 25. The former priests, on the one hand, existed in greater numbers because they were prevented by death from continuing. But Jesus, on the other hand, because he continues forever, holds his priesthood permanently. Therefore, he is able to save forever those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. Jesus, as our priest, has a better durability. he keeps going and going, and he is never going out of office. There is no term limit with Jesus. When things do not work the way that they are supposed to, who do you call? Customer service, right? Okay, it can be your computer, it could be your dishwasher, it could be your car. I need to call customer service because this thing is not working the way I want it to. One of the most frustrating things for me is when you call and what answers the phone? I didn't say who, what? A computer, right? And it says, if you would like to do this, press 1. If you would like to speak to this, press 2. If you would like to, and then if you would like that be in Spanish, presidente ocho, and it just goes through, and it's like, I just want to speak to someone, okay? So I call because I'm having a problem with my appliance, and I'm trying to get through to somebody, and I finally get through, and they say, oh, that's not my department, right? And so you're like, well, can you transfer me to the right? Okay, yes, I'll transfer to the right department, and then you do, and then you end up in like voicemail no man's land. And eventually it's like, okay, there's nothing there. And you're looking at your watch because I called at 4:45 p.m. on a Friday. I want a live person before 5, or I got to wait the whole weekend before I can get an answer. And by the time you actually get through to the right department, it's like, our office hours are 8 to 5, and you're looking at it's 5:02. You guys, you feel that frustration, right? When I call for help, I want to know that there's a live person on the other end that can help me. With Jesus, he always lives to make intercession for you. He is never out of the office. He is alive and well and on duty the entire time. He is never going out. The Jewish priest, they kept leaving their post because they died. They were human. They couldn't stay in that, so that's why there had to be another one to take their place, and another one, and another one. They kept leaving their post. Jesus is made high priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek, no death certificate. It's kind of like perpetual priesthood. You, Jesus, have a perpetual priesthood. Always there. So where is Jesus? He's at the right hand of the Father, and what is he doing? He's making intercession. What does that mean? He's your advocate. He's going to bat for you. He's praying for you. He is the one who is at Jesus' right hand pleading your case. At the Father's right hand, pleading your case. So, you call, he answers. Now, to rest the case, okay, when it's like, okay, I'm done with my arguments now before the court, okay, I want you to look again at verse 25. Verse 25 has two very enduring words, forever and always. Now, explanation about those. That word forever, make sure I'm not getting the things out of order here. Yeah, okay. That word forever is different than where it came up twice other in the passage. The previous 2 times that the word forever came up in our passage was where God had sworn, you are a priest forever. Okay? That was the earlier word. This is a different word in the Greek. This one here, let's see. Yeah, he is able to save forever. Some of your translations will say completely. In the King James, it says save to the uttermost. There is actually another word that you could say is to the very full extent or to the end. Now, can that be to the full extent of time? Yes, certainly. Jesus does save us forever. But he also saves us to the full extent. As long as he lives, he is able to make sure that you live. So case closed. What is your verdict? Will you trust? Will you trust him? So if so, then there are 3 changes that you should experience on the way out of the courtroom. If you have said, yes, I am placing my full trust in Jesus, these 3 changes especially are going to show up in your prayer life. So it's going to show up when you pray. When you pray. Because we are to come to him with any need, with every need, with needs that have been long-term, with needs that have just popped up. We come to him small or big, long-term or spur of the moment, everything. You come to him with everything. It's also going to change how we pray. Because you are going to pray with a confidence that means when you approach God, you are not going to be rejected. What I was talking about before is like, oh, I sinned again, I can't go back to God. Well, that's a poverty mentality. That's a slave mentality. That is not a son or daughter mentality. The son or daughter knows, I can approach God with confidence. You will receive what you need. Now, sometimes when we approach God, we're going to receive a huge blessing, a great gift. Other times, we're going to receive discipline. Other times, we're going to receive a correction. But is it what we need? If it's what we need, we can trust our Father in heaven is going to give us the good that we need when we come to him. You will receive because you have been received. Does that make sense? You're going to receive from him because he receives you, because you are dressed in the righteousness of Jesus Christ. Now that word forever, I did get myself out of order here. Okay, that word forever that came up 3 times, that is a different word that means to the full extent. So this answers the what question, and it will change how we pray. Okay? Yes, he will. It extends for all time, but it's also the completion of whatever is needed. Now, we talked about this back, I was looking it up. I knew we talked about this before. It was back in January, and I'll link to it on the website if you want to go listen to it again. But that Jesus saves completely. Jesus saves you completely. He does not just save your soul. Jesus has come to save you fully, which includes your soul. He saves your soul from death and hell for all of eternity. But he is concerned with your life here and now as well. That he has come to save your body from disease. He has come to save your mind from mental illness and depression and emotional torment. He has come to save you from demonic oppression and Satan's control in your life and addiction. He has come to save you completely. So yes, trust him for the saving of your soul, but trust him for the saving of much more than just your soul. Jesus is at the right hand of God forever as your intercessor. So come every time, come with confidence, and come with every single need you have. If you have a need, it's time to come. It's time to come. He will save, he will heal, he will forgive, and he will restore. Now we're going to have our time of closing invitation now. This was a deep passage, and I really appreciate you guys hanging with me. Yeah, I can see some of you like, whew, yeah, that was tough. But it's part of God's Word. And it has been put there for our instruction. It has been put there for our encouragement. And it has been put there for our application. This is something that's to be incorporated into our lives. So though the author was addressing people in a different culture, in a different time, who came out of a different religious background, the principle there is still completely applicable to us, because the same person that served as their high priest is also our high priest. And he is taking them out of an inferior, doing-based religion that could never make a person perfect. He is also bringing us out of a doing-based mindset that can never make us perfect. And he says, if you will trust me, I will make you whole. I will save you. I will restore you. So if you have a need this morning, it is time to come to Jesus, your intercessor. Well, come to the Father with Jesus there at your right hand to plead your case. God, I have a need.